above all, you know, you now say you got a phone call. Well, who did you get that phone call from, Mark Ratner? You know, was it the janitor of the lab? You know, was it the garbage man? You know, give me the name of the person, because that person has diagnosed Tommy with something he never had. Then we've got Dr. Margaret Goodman, who comes into play now, and all these things have come out since Tommy had passed away. In 2007, she comes out with this media report again in USA Today, which goes viral when Tommy's trying to get his comeback. And she says quite publicly, she went to Quest Labs, asked for Tommy's results, and the MD and the pathologist that she met with retrieved his archived results, and that they were unequivocal and positive. And she was allowed to do that by the commission. Well, the commission have got emails to Tommy saying that they were not responsible for Dr. Margaret Goodman to go even and meet with this guy called John Hyatt, Dr. John Hyatt. And then, Dennis, I then find out in the last few months that Dr. John Hyatt in Las Vegas, who was supposedly Tommy's physician, he's not even licensed to be a physician. Yes. He's not even licensed to be a pathologist, and yet it's all over the media. So, you know, Dr. John Hyatt, you're not a doctor. You know, why did you not retract that from the media frenzy, you know, when you could have done? And why? And I'm asking you to do it now. You know, Quest Labs, for example, who he worked for, in their correspondence, say that he never retrieved Tommy's results, right? So who's telling the truth here, Dennis? You know, is it John Hyatt, who is not an MD? You know, if you want an MD, go study to be one, right? Or is it Dr. Margaret Goodman, you know, saying that John Hyatt, Dr. John Hyatt, gave her the information? So that's another defendant. And the Nevada State Athletic Commission, you're using tests in 1996 that you made Tommy do, and still today. These 3 tests that the test kit companies have so kindly come back to me and said, our tests don't detect HIV infection. So I'm trying to protect the commission here, because they need to be asking for the proper testing if they want to make sure people do not contract HIV coming directly out of Tommy's blood in the ring. You know, you're requesting also, and I'm talking to the Nevada Commission right now, you're also requesting the printout from Quest Lab that is not a diagnosis. That's not proof. You know, no clinical lab diagnoses. And other clinical labs, Dennis, in the country have told me that, have emailed me that, but the Vegas Quest Labs refuses to answer that question, right? And the CDC have confirmed, you know, labs, clinical labs do not diagnose. That piece of paper that somebody's holding in their hand now with Tommy Morrison's name, whether it's family or promoter or a fake attorney that says, you know, you've got HIV, that piece of paper does not mean you are diagnosed with HIV. And that's the piece of paper that the Nevada Commission are basing the kicking Tommy out in 1996. But then again, since the beginning of this lawsuit, it's not even a piece of paper. It was all done by phone.
This is the Ringside Boxing Show from rainy Monterey, California. I'm Dennis Taylor, and we are streaming all over the world right now at radiomonterey.com. So, also in your brief, you have the opinion of a doctor of your own, an expert witness.
Correct.
Who agreed to testify on your behalf. He's a Las Vegas pathologist, as I understand it, who has published more than 185 medical papers on various topics. Tell us about this guy who's in your corner, Dr. Henry Soloway, and what he said about your husband's diagnosis.
All right. It's not people just in my corner, Dennis. I have gone not to the media to get my answers, not to the doubters that are listening, you know, to this radio show. I've gone to the experts. I've gone to real pathologists. I've gone, to the CDC. I've gone to the FDA. So, this particular person, if God's not in the miracle business, then this is pretty amazing. He has done an affidavit, which I will file this week, so just so that the defendants know that, and I hope the judge is listening to this. This is an affidavit that's signed by a very reputable, licensed, certified pathologist, and he says, and I'll read it out here. Okay, I've got his affidavit right here. The missing Social Security number, date of birth, and age on the requisition sheet all suggest that the sample received was not drawn at an APL outpatient center, which was Quest, or by any Quest APL personnel stationed elsewhere, but rather at some other location by non-APL personnel, probably a physician's office. The reason for this conclusion is that APL phlebotomists would have received formal discipline for failing to obtain these pieces of information. APL had no control over the procedures in private physicians' offices or in other settings where the sample might have been drawn. And then he goes on to say, since only 1 out of 1,000 individuals during 1996 was infected with the HIV virus throughout the United States, the odds are 999 to 1 that a random error would have resulted in a positive result from a random misidentification error. In all likelihood, the sample tested by APL was deliberately obtained from an individual known to be HIV positive, then deliberately labeled with Mr. Morrison's name and submitted to APL for testing, and this is the kicker, knowing that this criminal act would result in the cancellation of a boxing match that was scheduled to have taken place February 10th, 1996. And then one other little part is, since Mr. Morrison received no medication for his alleged HIV following his positive test results, and at least one subsequent test, the electron microscopic examination of blood cells failed to detect the presence of HIV virus, and since Mr. Morrison lived for 17 years after the tests in question were performed, I conclude that Mr. Morrison was never infected with HIV virus. Accordingly, the tests, although performed on a sample labeled with Mr. Morrison's name, were performed upon an individual other than Mr. Morrison.
About 5 minutes left with Tricia Morrison, the widow of Tommy the Duke Morrison. If Tommy had taken care of business, as he always liked to say, against Arthur Weathers, he'd been promised a $10 million fight. It was against Tyson, right? He's supposed to fight Tyson.
Yep, the third fight I found, actually, in the last few months, I found the contract between Don King and Tommy, and it was dated September 95, and he signed off on a $10 million contract, and the first fight was against Stormy Weathers, and the third fight would have ended up being against Mike Tyson.
So is this a $10 million lawsuit?
It's a multi-million-dollar lawsuit, Dennis. Mm-hmm. And for anybody that's out there listening, I'm not asking for one penny. It's actually going to his children, to the mothers of his children, and for any promoter or manager that lost money out there, I'm really asking for apology letters from Dr. Margaret Goodman. You know, how dare she come out in the media with stuff. I'm asking for an apology letter from Dr. John Hyatt, he's not a doctor, and I'm asking the Nevada State Athletic Commission to read those test disclaimers that the test companies say, because, you know, the commission is not protecting people because they're asking for the wrong tests. They need the subsequent test, which is what an expert witness said, to view whether that person actually has a virus in their body or not.
What's the day going to be like when all this is finally behind you? How much is going to lift off your shoulders?
It's going to lift a lot. I mean, already every single day, you know, I'm blown out of the water here. You know, it's amazing going through this lawsuit because of all the stuff that's coming out. You know, emails that they've received over the years from a fake attorney called Randy Lang, you know, sending these results through, which are exactly the same tests that don't detect HIV, right? You know, and finding out that in 1996, when he was medically suspended internationally indefinitely, did the world know that in 2006 it was lifted? You know, why suddenly you say he's got this deadly disease and then lift it? You know, it's overwhelming. There will be a movie on this, and it will have all the truth.
We talked to Tommy 2 or 3 times on this show, and he was always great. He never gave us the impression that he was trying to claim he was a perfect guy. He went through a period of drug abuse and other issues in his life. He went to prison for a while, but in his final years, Tricia, he seemed to be doing all the right things. He opened a boxing gym for kids in the roughest part of Wichita. He created a summer camp for kids with cancer. What would you like people to know about Tommy Morrison?
He was a genuine human being that had been misdiagnosed, misunderstood, and he just had the biggest heart ever. And he loved his fans. He appreciated those that stayed close to him during this whole ordeal. You know, a really good friend called Mike, and another good friend called Dale, and another good friend called Eric, and his best childhood friend called Andy. These are the guys that he really appreciated, and probably never had a time to thank them. And he was just one of the guys. You know, he was just a real human being, very intelligent, gave money wherever he could, would give his last penny. So just a really normal person with just a weird life.
If anybody out there has just tuned into this interview, the whole thing is going to be posted tomorrow at ringsideboxingshow.com. You can listen to the entire show. Before we leave, we got a few seconds left. Tell people about Tommy's 2 books and where they can get them.
Okay, first book is My Boxing Career, and the profits go to his son Trey. The second book is My Darkest Years, and the profits go to his second son, Kenzie. So please buy those, because you're helping to support his 2 kids that he obviously isn't able to do so. And the third book, called My Unfinished Business, is still unfinished, and the profits of that will go to his first grandson called Sebastian.
Always great talking to you, Tricia. Thank you so much for being with us today on the Ringside Boxing Show, and best of luck with this lawsuit.
All right, Dennis, well, you make sure you give a copy to the judge in Las Vegas, because they're trying to boot me out, okay?
Okay. We'll do it. We'll send him something. Thank you so much, Tricia. Have a great day.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Tricia Morrison on the Ringside Boxing Show. Thanks, as always, to our expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwan Zahid, and John J. Responti. Travis wasn't with us today. And thanks to today's featured guest, Tricia Morrison, widow of Tommy the Duke Morrison. And we will see you next week. Same time, same place. Another great guest.